UFC Noche 306 just took place, and man, I gotta say, guys, I think I'm gonna make another video on this, but I believe that was the greatest card in UFC history. Every single fight on there delivered. I don't even need the name value, and this is something that I was talking about before the card actually came about, because people were really disappointed with the level of the Sphere card. I'm like, looking at it, and I'm like, dude, all of these fights should deliver, and deliver did they ever. The Sphere was fantastic. We're going to talk about all of it today with timestamps if you'd like to skip to any part of the video in the pinned comment description down below. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Hey, if you're new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with many YouTube channels. Guys, let's take a look first at the betting recap for the channel, and this is probably the worst part to take a look at over here. So we have the official MMA plays this weekend, and I spoke about this in my members only video. The fun parlay is a parlay with fighters that I believe are going to win, but I never expect to hit. That's why I only throw $5 on it each time. But man, Yaszmin was one of my most confident picks on the card, which is a little bit shocking to me. The Sean O'Malley bet, I was also saying like that was more of a 50-50 fight. I just had a little bit of a gut feeling on Sean, which was completely incorrect. But the one that really threw me off was Alexa Grasso. That was one of my confident picks on the card, and one of my most confident picks on the card. I thought that Valentina Shevchenko was too old to handle Grasso, and Grasso didn't look like she belonged in there. So unfortunately, we had a horrible night for betting. But hey, you know what? That's okay. It doesn't happen often. There's nothing you can do. Every single time that you bet, it's bound to happen, right? But before we actually dive into the fights, guys, I want to talk about the Sphere for a second, because the Sphere was absolutely phenomenal. Again, I think I'm going to make another video talking about the Sphere, and I want to make probably a couple videos taking a look at different things. But when I was first sitting down and I first looked at the Sphere, like when Raul Rosas Jr. was fighting, I was like, oh my God, they spent $20 million. Oh my God, this is the most disappointing thing I've ever seen, because we all know how much Dana White was hyping this thing up, right? It was going to be the greatest event ever, and it ended up being the greatest event ever. My favorite fight cards have been UFC 189, UFC 205, and UFC 300. I would really have to sit down and think about which ones are my favorite. Maybe I can break down the top 5 cards of all time. I think that'd be pretty cool, and like before UFC 300. It's a really solid card. Video idea, actually. I can definitely be doing that. But I was sitting here and going, yeah, this is not going to stack up, because I thought, I didn't know anything about the Sphere. I don't know if you guys knew anything about the Sphere, but I thought that it was just a big cage there. I was like, what happened to the screen? What happened to everything that we were promised over here? Like, there's not even a screen on the inside. It's just like colors. And then perhaps that's just me being dumb or not knowing anything about the Sphere. But then after the Raul Rosas Jr. fight, they opened up the theatrics, the environment that they created was on another level, and it really did make for the best combat sports event that I've ever seen. It changed each time. I don't know what the Easter eggs are, if anybody's ever going to come out with them, but they did a fantastic job too at really making you feel what they were feeling in there. I would imagine it doesn't even come close, but man, like when the cameras went to the ground, I loved that the fighters were there, and you could see like they made you feel like you were outside, the clouds moving around when you were in space. Like, it was absolutely phenomenal. It was phenomenal. So the Sphere was a major success in my opinion, and it made for, with all of the fights it delivered, it was the greatest combat sports event I've ever watched. It took over for all of my UFC fight cards. So let's break down, guys, some of these fights over here, starting off with Raul Rosas Jr. versus Aoriqileng. Now, Raul Rosas Jr., he got the win. I actually am left feeling not so great about him, to be honest with you, because he was actually, and he did make improvements, and it's important to note he's only 19 years old, of course, he's pushing 20, so there is lots of room for improvement. But Raul Rosas Jr. actually came out, and he was actually aggressive with the striking, and this is something that we haven't seen before. I was always critical of Raul Rosas Jr., saying, like, he just focuses on grappling, and even when he grapples, he doesn't do enough damage, and that's a big issue, especially when you're taking damage into account for your scoring. So I like that Raul Rosas Jr. pushed the pressure a little bit. I liked that we actually saw him really, I don't know if he necessarily tried to go for the finish. I think he did, but he was a little bit more aggressive this time around, and you can tell that his game is still evolving. But the problem is, you can tell that Raul Rosas Jr. isn't nearly at this top level yet, especially in the bantamweight division. There are a lot of guys that are really going to take Raul Rosas Jr.'s head off. He needs to make some more improvements, but I'm glad to see that he's continuing to get better and better. Now let's talk about I don't know what fight of the night was, man. There should have been multiple fight of the nights. I know that, who did it go to? Was it Zellhuber? Actually, I don't know who it went to, but I know it did not go to Joshua Van versus Edgar Chairez. That's crazy in my opinion. That's crazy. Like, this was such an amazing fight. When the fight began, I was like, oh my God, Joshua Van came back too early. Joshua Van's going to lose the fight, because he was getting his leg chewed up. He was getting popped with some 1-2s. Like, Edgar Chairez was looking fantastic. But then, in classic Joshua Van fashion, Joshua Van turned it up. Each time the round started, he ended up dig into the body. His body shots are absolute money. against anybody. And Edgar Chairez ended up not being able to handle it, but he did end up being able to handle it because Edgar Chairez used that animal that's in him. And he ended up like just lasting, and he ended up rocking Joshua Van back. They were going back and forth. It was one of the most brutal wars we have seen in a very long time. Like, oh my God, this has got to be fight of the night. Little did we know what was going to come. So I'm left with this fight feeling fantastic about both guys. I am never underrating Edgar Chairez ever again. Let's continue on to the next fight, that being Ketlen Souza versus Yaszmin Jauregui. Now, Yaszmin, if you guys would know, is one of my most confident picks on the card, or was one of my most confident picks on the card. It shocked me to see Ketlen Souza knock her out, and I was perhaps I was underrating Ketlen Souza. I don't know, man, because I was really left with a sour taste in my mouth after the Marnik Man performance. But Yaszmin Jauregui, she came out, she was looking okay. Like, it was an okay fight while it lasted, but Ketlen Souza ended up just clipping her. And then and one of the tweets that they featured on the screen put it perfectly. She snatched that neck up like a viper. Like, that was the slickest rear naked, like, transition to a club and sub that I've ever seen. Well, I know we've seen better, but you get what I'm saying. Like, that was really, really impressive work. Sucks for Yaszmin, man. I think that she has a lot of potential. She's very promotable, and I actually kind of liked watching her. So Yaszmin, I hope she bounces back, man, because she has a lot of potential in the division. She's a really, really good fighter. Now, let's continue on over to the next fight, guys. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Manuel Torres. Now, this was another great fight. I should have, man. I didn't do it, but I wanted to bet on Ignacio Bahamondes. There's two fights that I was really considering betting on, that being Ignacio Bahamondes and Norma Dumont. I don't know why I didn't pull the trigger on Norma Dumont. I was saying, like, all week, I just think she's better. I can't believe she's the underdog. So, regardless, should have done it, but I didn't do it. And then, what do you know, the one that I'm not confident in, I end up placing a bet on Sean O'Malley. Fight IQ lacking over here on my end. Anyways, Ignacio Bahamondes looked great. The accuracy was on point. I still think he's getting better. Huge for the division. I really do think that he is someone to look out for. Sucks for Manuel Torres, but what can you do, man? Ignacio Bahamondes really, really looked good. Let's continue on over to the next fight, that being Norma Dumont versus Irene Aldana. Now, I was really, really feeling good about Norma Dumont. I thought that she was just better, and she showed that she's better. And when I talk about every fight on this card delivering, we even had the fights in these divisions delivering, which was crazy. Irene Aldana had the worst cut probably in UFC history from a headbutt, but we all know that Herb Dean was, I don't know if Herb Dean is that ref, but the refs for this card were definitely instructed to not get involved, stop fights, and break up any inaction, have their fighters want to win, like we saw with Sean O'Malley at the end of the night, because it was so uncharacteristic for Herb Dean. Come on, let's work. It's like this type of stuff that you see in one championship. But Irene Aldana suffers the worst cut we've ever seen in the octagon. I know people are saying like you'd see her skull, but there was so much blood that I don't even know if people are exaggerating or not about that. But regardless, it literally was the worst cut we've ever seen. That fight should have been stopped 10 out of 10 times. I don't know how she walked forward with that. Like, her entire forehead was split open. I need to know how that thing's gonna heal, man, because that was horrible. But I mean, like, man, is she tough if she wants to push through that. But Norma Dumont did what Norma Dumont does. Technical striking. Head's a little bit out there to be hit, but she was always moving, always throwing something out. And the fight was a little bit of a war, man. Both of them looked really, really good. Speaking of fighters looking good, Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Ode Osbourne was another banger. I was feeling good about Ode Osbourne this time around, and Ode Osbourne was another one that I kind of considered betting on. Thankfully, I didn't, because Ode Osbourne, it's so frustrating to watch him, man, because I keep talking about how I believe that Ode Osbourne is a better fighter than everybody gives him credit for. The problem is his ground game, and I think he might have went out there this time around trying to prove people wrong that he doesn't have a ground game, because that's what everybody's talking about right now. Ode Osbourne lacking in a ground game. He was so much better on the feet, so much faster, rocking Ronaldo Rodriguez. It's understandable for him to go to the finish in round one. I still don't think that's necessarily a good idea. I think that he should have kept it on the feet, but it's understandable. For rounds 2 and 3 to just go for the guillotine, go for the triangles, go for the arm bars, yeah, you know what? The attempts look good, but at the same time, Ode Osbourne had such an advantage on the feet. I think it was a huge missed opportunity, and that allowed for Ronaldo Rodriguez to push through. And by the way, I have no idea how he got out of that triangle choke. That was a fully locked-in triangle. Ronaldo Rodriguez, he proved that he has all the heart in the world. He proved that he can beat a very capable opponent, Ode Osbourne, but I think moving forward, man, like, and a lot of people in this division will really give Ronaldo Rodriguez a lot of problems, especially in the striking. He's okay on the ground. He pretty much just relies on his heart, but it's a very fun fighter. He was really, really nice to watch, but it's frustrating for Ode Osbourne. I feel bad for him because I like Ode Osbourne, but he keeps making those fight IQ mistakes and trying to go for the finish, trying to get a submission. I don't understand why people do that when they have such an advantage on the feet. The speed was there, the power was there, but you kept going for it. It sucks for Osbourne, man, but he did it to himself. Let's continue on over to the next fight. Esteban Ribovics versus Daniel Zellhuber. I think both guys had their stock raised for this fight. It doesn't matter that Ribovics got the win. I think that Zellhuber proved that he is the real deal. I already thought that Daniel Zellhuber was a little bit of the real deal. I didn't know how far he would go in the division, but I thought he had a lot of promise, and promise did he show, man. He had the chin, heart, he had the technique, the combinations were on point. Same goes for Ribovics, man, except he was just a little bit better. I thought the fight could have gone either way, hence the split decision. I really thought they were going to give it to Zellhuber because he's Mexican, man, because of course they want the Mexicans to win at UFC Noche. But Esteban showed up, he wanted to get the kill, and I wholeheartedly believe that fight should have been stopped in the third round. I don't know how many shots Zellhuber ate, but it was probably beyond like 50. Like, I don't even know how many shots he threw, and they were power shots. I don't know how Zellhuber stayed on his feet. Again, it was one of the best fights that we've ever seen. Like, this entire card just delivered. I would imagine this got fight of the night. I haven't looked up. I forget who got... I did see it, but it's just slipping my mind right now who got fight of the night. Anyways, let's continue on. Diego Lopez, Brian Ortega. You guys might know that I am not a T-City fan. And I am a Diego Lopez fan, so this was a little nice to see. I was left with the Dan Ige performance with a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth with Diego Lopez. I wasn't sure about him. I wasn't sure about him fighting at the top level against Brian Ortega, which Brian Ortega absolutely still is top level. That's very important to note. It's just number 12 or 13 or whatever Diego Lopez was taking on the number 3 contender in Brian Ortega. It was just a brand new level of opponent. Now, what was proven to mean, maybe it was dumb on my end to think a little bit less of Diego Lopez because of his last performance, but it looked like all of the special circumstances really did have a factor in Diego Lopez's performance last time, because he came out against the number 3 guy, a very, very capable and great fighter against Brian Ortega. He pushed the pace right away and did not stop for 3 rounds. He beat Brian Ortega on the feet. He beat Brian Ortega on the ground. He tried to take his head off the entire time, and I think that Diego Lopez belongs at the very top of the division. I cannot wait to see what's next for this guy. Of course, he has to fight like at the top. I think Topuria beats him. I think Holloway beats him, but I think Diego Lopez will chin Volkanovski. I think that's how that's going to go. But man, regardless, Diego Lopez proved that he belonged at the top of the division. Brian Ortega, in classic Brian Ortega fashion, walked forward, and even his corner was saying this, walk forward like a zombie. The dude never gave up, no matter how many times that you think he's out of there. Like, I was watching this fight with my family, and when Diego Lopez killed Brian Ortega at the beginning, my mom was like, oh my God, you need to stop the fight. I'm like, I've never count out Brian Ortega. He's going to find out a triangle, or he's going to get up and bring the fight right back to Diego Lopez. And it's so true, man. That's why Brian Ortega is really fun to watch fight. But Diego Lopez proved that he's the real deal. I cannot wait to see what's next for that guy. Let's continue on over to the co-main event. Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso. This fight, I was worried that it would kill the momentum of the card because, again, every single fight delivered. And I don't know what the fan reactions were to this fight, because I know that when you have a jiu-jitsu-based fight, a lot of people get frustrated with it. I find that really, really fun. I think that both Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso showed great grappling. Alexa Grasso got so close to so many submissions, but other than that, man, Valentina Shevchenko fought the best fight. This was another really confident pick of mine, and this is one of the fights where I was shocked to lose money on this fight. I bet on Alexa Grasso, and I thought that she was going to get the win. Valentina Shevchenko's pushing 40. Valentina Shevchenko isn't the same fighter she was. Like, don't get me wrong. And something that I was saying in the pre-fight breakdown was, I think that Valentina Shevchenko is miles beyond the fighter that Alexa Grasso is. But Valentina Shevchenko, as of recently, has been aging out of her prime. She is playing it even more safe, which is something that she's already done. And she's found herself in bad positions that I don't think that she would have found herself in 5 years ago. And what happened was Valentina Shevchenko really made sure that she never found any bad positions. She took her down, went for control. She almost got submitted quite a bit of times, but Valentina Shevchenko also showed some fantastic ground defense. So I personally really enjoyed this fight. I'm a big fan of BJJ, and when you have BJJ and MMA for 5 rounds, I am so for it, because we don't see that too often. It was very high level. Let's continue on to the main event. And actually, I'm sorry, there was one thing that I wanted to point out about Grasso. Something that left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth about Grasso is she looked a little defeated. And seeing the Sean O'Malley on my screen here, you guys can't see it. It reminded me of what I wanted to say about Grasso, because we kind of saw the same thing. After about the second or third round, Grasso looked frustrated and she looked defeated. You can see it in her eyes. I think that's something really important to note if she's ever dragged through another really frustrating and tough fight. Somebody like an Erin Blanchfield might bring her through. So that's something to consider if we're gonna bet on Alexa Grasso moving forward or bet on a Alexa Grasso fight. Let's continue on to the main event. Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley. I had a gut feeling that Sean O'Malley was going to win this one. I thought that Sean O'Malley was going to clip him, and I thought if it was a close fight that they were going to give it to Sean O'Malley because they're obviously promoting Sean O'Malley. And man, 48-47, they almost gave the fight to O'Malley. That would have been criminal. That would have been worse than the Piotr Jan robbery. In saying that, though, I think Sean O'Malley, it's tough, man, because what can you say? Merab did what Merab does. Merab humiliated Sean O'Malley the same way that he humiliated Henry Cejudo. It was chaotic at the beginning. Like, I almost feel kind of bad for O'Malley, dude, because that was like next level humiliation. Merab just dummying him, doing whatever he wanted, and then I couldn't help but laugh. Like, I would be so grossed out if I was there, and I would want to kill Merab if that was me, but I couldn't help but laugh. Merab took Sean O'Malley down and just started kissing him and let him up. Like, come on, man. I don't know who's going to beat Merab. You're in the toughest division of all time in combat sports history, regardless of organization. Umar's probably going to be next, but I don't even know. Like, can anybody beat Merab? Until Merab's age catches up with him, I don't know. Because at this point, you can't chin Merab. And Merab fought more safe than usual, too. Something that I thought was going to happen is Merab was going to walk in with his chin up in the air, and O'Malley was going to clip him. For the first time, we see Merab have his hands up, be defensively aware, choosing his timing with his takedowns. And his timings on his takedowns were next level, and they were improved. Merab's still getting better somehow. I have no idea who's going to beat him. It's crazy to me that he was the underdog. If any of you bet on Merab, I know it was flipping around, but if any of you caught Merab at underdog odds, let me know, because that's really, really great. I had a feeling that Sean O'Malley was going to clip him, but I did know that it could have been a rough night for him too. It was a really, really close fight. It was a fantastic matchup. Merab Dvalishvili, in the way that he usually does, humiliated his opponent. And Sean O'Malley, like I was talking about Alexa Grasso, he looked defeated around the third. He looked defeated. You could see it in his eyes. He was frustrating, and I don't think that he saw an avenue to winning. But he did hurt. This is the thing. He hurt Merab in the fifth, but I don't even know if that's just Merab doing what Merab does. Like, oh my God, you hurt me. So I don't even know if Sean O'Malley even found any success. Merab's on another level. I don't know who's going to beat him, man. I think we need to, I think I should start betting on Merab Dvalishvili moving forward, because no matter how much he could get clipped, no matter what skill set somebody brings to Merab just ragdolls them. Merab just breaks them. He's a fantastic fighter. And now he's the new champion. I cannot wait to see where this division lies, because you have the top contenders, right? I'm thinking about the top contenders right now, and I think that Umar might be the only one with a chance. And that's a chance, right? I'm thinking, like, if Piotr Jan wins his next fight, we already saw that. I'm thinking if Davison Figueiredo wants to get a title fight, Merab will kill Davison Figueiredo. As much as I would want Davison Figueiredo to win, Merab would ruin him. He'd ruin Chito Vera. He'd ruin everybody at the top of the division. He beat Corey Sandhagen. I don't know who's going to beat this guy. You have to wait for his age to catch up with him. And we all know, like, he was definitely destroying Sterling in the rounds together. Yeah, he might be the best bantamweight. Well, I mean, he is the best bantamweight because he's the new champion, but I'm trying to think of all time here. I don't know who's going to be able to beat him, man. It's going to be fun. It's going to be crazy. It's really, really rough on Sean O'Malley's career. I don't know if his confidence level took a hit, because he looked, for the first time, Sean O'Malley really looked defeated. In the Piotr Jan war, he got up, he fought through it. He went 5 tough rounds with Chito Vera. He's been through some really, really hard fights. He's never looked defeated. This is going to be a big issue on Sean O'Malley if he comes in against a new wrestler, because there are wrestlers in the division. What if the confidence level isn't there? What if the aura is gone in his own eyes? It's going to be interesting to see how he bounced back, but regardless, the Sphere card delivered. That was the best fight card I've ever seen in my life. Every single fight on this card delivered, including Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko, in my opinion. I loved it from start to finish. I was disappointed in the Sphere at the beginning because I didn't know that the screen was going to open up, and maybe that's dumb on my end. I was sitting there, I was thinking, like, man, I cannot believe they put $20 million into us, and then it opened up. I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense for $20 million. I hope that Dana White changes his mind, because if you guys don't know, Dana said that this is never going to happen again. I would imagine it's way too expensive, but after an event like that, I don't think they're ever going to top it. They had the best fight cards of all time. UFC 189, UFC 205, UFC 300 was probably, if I had to rank them, like UFC 189, then UFC 205, then UFC 300. Those are the fight cards that really, really stand out as the greatest cards of all time. And 2 of them had Conor McGregor on it. This was better with less name value than 2 of the prime Conor McGregor cards. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. Let me know down below, but The fights delivered. The matchups were perfect. And this is something that I was saying before the card even happened, because people were disappointed with the name value, of course, right? And understandably so. Sean O'Malley, maybe Alexa Grasso. Those are really the only big names on there. Maybe Raul Rosas Jr. because he's starting to become a star. But every single one of these matchups, we knew that the hardcore fans knew that they were going to deliver. And boy, did they ever. Even Norma Dumont versus Irene Aldana. Norma Dumont went through a war. That's crazy. Honestly, if the UFC can even afford it, every single fighter on this card deserves a bonus for what they went through on this card. The war's there, the entertainment value. I hope that they change their mind and they go back, because could you imagine if this is a yearly thing for UFC Noche? Sorry, I always pronounce that wrong. I just hope they change their mind. Let me know what you thought about all the fights down below. Thank you very much for being here, guys. Thank you for watching. Check out this video on screen right now, breaking down the next card. We already have that out for you. Take care, everybody.